The 7th of November 1959, 3:42 a.m., Brooklyn, New York. Tony Anastasia was sleeping peacefully in his penthouse apartment when the entire building began to shake violently beneath him. What started as a low rumble quickly escalated into a catastrophic structural collapse that would kill Tony and 14 other residents within minutes. As Tony bolted upright in his bed, he had just enough time to realize that this wasn't an earthquake or a gas explosion. This was the culmination of a 3-year real estate operation, orchestrated by Lucky Luciano from his Italian exile. The building Tony had lived in for 12 years. The building he thought was his fortress. The building that housed 3 generations of his family had been systematically undermined from the foundation up by construction crews who had been secretly working for Lucky's organization. Tony Anastasia was about to become the victim of the most sophisticated assassination method ever devised: death by real estate. To understand how Lucky Luciano transformed the New York real estate market into a weapon for eliminating his enemies, you need to understand the massive urban development boom that was reshaping the city in the late 1950s. Post-war economic prosperity had triggered unprecedented construction activity throughout New York, with old buildings being demolished and replaced by modern structures that could accommodate the city's growing population and changing business needs. The construction boom created perfect cover for criminal operations because building demolition, renovation, and new construction involved so many variables, contractors, and regulatory agencies that it was virtually impossible for law enforcement to track all the activities or identify suspicious patterns in what appeared to be routine development projects. More importantly, building collapses and construction accidents were common enough in New York during this period that additional incidents wouldn't attract unusual attention from authorities or media organizations that were already dealing with multiple construction-related disasters every month. Lucky realized that real estate development offered the perfect combination of legitimacy, profitability, and operational cover for systematic elimination operations that could kill multiple targets while generating enormous profits and maintaining complete legal protection through ownership of legitimate development companies. The inspiration for Lucky's real estate assassination strategy came from his observation of how building failures could result in deaths that appeared to be accidental while actually being the result of deliberate structural manipulation that was virtually undetectable through routine investigation methods. Lucky had been studying the New York construction industry from his Italian exile since 1955, recognizing that the city's rapid development created unprecedented opportunities for acquiring properties where his enemies lived or conducted business, then manipulating those properties to eliminate the targets through methods that would appear to be natural disasters or construction accidents. The establishment of Lucky's real estate empire required careful preparation and substantial financial investment that was provided through his international criminal network and laundered through complex corporate structures that made his involvement completely invisible to regulatory authorities and law enforcement agencies. Lucky's real estate operations were structured through a network of shell companies, offshore corporations, and legitimate development firms that provided multiple layers of protection against investigation while allowing him to acquire properties throughout New York without attracting attention to the systematic nature of his purchases. Meyer Lansky coordinated the American aspects of the real estate operation, working through established connections in New York's construction industry to identify target properties, arrange financing, and manage the regulatory approvals required for large-scale development projects. Frank Costello managed the construction and demolition operations, ensuring that every aspect of the building manipulation would appear to be routine maintenance or development work, while actually serving to weaken structural integrity in ways that would cause catastrophic failure at predetermined times. The real estate acquisition strategy focused on buildings where Lucky's enemies lived, worked, or conducted regular business, with special attention to properties that could be purchased without alerting the targets to the change in ownership. Lucky's organization used front companies and legitimate real estate investment firms to acquire properties through normal commercial transactions that appeared to be routine investment activities by established development companies with legitimate business purposes. The property acquisition process was extraordinarily careful and gradual, with purchases spread over multiple years and conducted through different corporate entities to prevent any apparent pattern that might alert targets or law enforcement to the systematic nature of Lucky's real estate activities. Tony Anastasia's apartment building on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn was the first major target for Lucky's real estate assassination operation. The building had been constructed in 1943 and housed 12 families, including Tony's extended family and several associates from his criminal organization. The building purchase was accomplished through Meridian Development Corporation, a legitimate real estate investment company that had been secretly acquired by Lucky's organization in 1956. Meridian approached the building's owner with an offer to purchase the property for development into a larger apartment complex that would generate higher rental income and property values. The purchase price was significantly above market value, making the offer attractive to the original owner while providing cover for the acquisition that appeared to be a routine real estate investment rather than a criminal operation designed to eliminate specific tenants. Once Lucky's organization controlled the building, they began a systematic campaign of structural manipulation disguised as routine maintenance and improvement projects that would actually weaken the building's foundation and support systems while maintaining the appearance of responsible property management. The structural manipulation was conducted by construction crews that included legitimate workers who were unaware of the criminal purpose of their activities, along with specially trained operatives who could perform specific types of damage that would remain invisible until catastrophic failure occurred. The foundation work began in March 1958, with crews ostensibly repairing water damage in the basement while actually removing crucial support materials and replacing them with inferior substitutes that would gradually weaken under the building's weight. The basement modifications were carefully calculated to create structural instability that would progress slowly over 18 months, allowing time for the deterioration to reach critical levels while avoiding immediate collapse that might trigger investigation into recent construction activities. Load-bearing walls throughout the building were systematically weakened through renovation projects that claimed to be updating electrical and plumbing systems, but actually involved removing structural materials and replacing them with cosmetic elements that provided no structural support. The electrical renovation provided perfect cover for drilling holes in support beams, removing reinforcement materials, and introducing chemical agents that would accelerate deterioration of concrete and steel components over time. Plumbing upgrades allowed construction crews to remove crucial support elements from walls and foundations, while creating water leaks that would further weaken structural integrity through sustained moisture damage that appeared to be the result of aging building systems. The roof and upper floor modifications included work that claimed to improve insulation and energy efficiency, but actually removed weight, bearing supports and introduced materials that would add excessive weight to structural elements that had been weakened through the foundation and wall modifications. The systematic structural manipulation was designed to create a cascading failure that would begin with foundation collapse and progress rapidly through the entire building, ensuring that residents would have no opportunity to escape once the collapse process began. More importantly, the failure would appear to be the result of natural building deterioration accelerated by the normal stresses of urban construction activity in the surrounding neighborhood, making investigation focus on building age and maintenance history rather than deliberate sabotage. The timing of the building collapse was controlled through final structural modifications that could trigger immediate failure once all other preparatory work had been completed, and the building's structural integrity had been reduced to critical levels. The collapse trigger was activated through what appeared to be routine foundation repair work conducted on the 6th of November, 1959, when construction crews removed the final support elements that had been preventing structural failure during the 18-month preparation period. The building collapse occurred at 3:42 a.m. on the 7th of November, 1959, when the accumulated structural damage reached the point where the foundation could no longer support the building's weight and catastrophic failure became inevitable. Tony Anastasia and 14 other residents were killed instantly when the building's foundation gave way and the entire structure collapsed into the basement within less than 90 seconds from the beginning of the failure. The collapse was so rapid and complete that rescue efforts were impossible, and most victims were killed by falling debris before they could even attempt to escape from their apartments. The New York Fire Department's investigation concluded that the building collapse was caused by foundation failure related to water damage and structural deterioration that had been accelerated by nearby construction activities that had created vibrations and soil instability. The investigation found no evidence of deliberate sabotage or criminal activity, noting that building collapses were unfortunately common in older structures that had been subjected to the stresses of urban development and inadequate maintenance over extended periods. The success of the Tony Anastasia elimination operation led to the expansion of Lucky's real estate assassination strategy to target additional crime figures throughout New York who posed threats to his organization or could provide valuable assets if their properties could be acquired through inheritance or forced sale after their deaths. Over the next 3 years, Lucky's real estate empire systematically eliminated 18 major crime figures through building collapses, construction accidents, and structural failures that appeared to be natural disasters or the unfortunate consequences of urban development activities. Vincent Rao was eliminated in 1960 when his social club in Manhattan was destroyed by a gas explosion that appeared to be caused by aging infrastructure, but was actually triggered by gas line modifications that had been installed during routine utility upgrades conducted by Lucky's construction crews. The gas explosion was particularly effective because it destroyed all evidence of the modifications that had caused the blast while killing Rao and 7 associates who were attending a regular business meeting in the club's back room. Joseph Colombo was eliminated in 1961 when his restaurant in Brooklyn was destroyed by a kitchen fire that spread rapidly through the building due to ventilation modifications that had been installed during a renovation project conducted by one of Lucky's front companies. The restaurant fire appeared to be caused by cooking equipment malfunction, but the rapid spread was actually due to deliberate ventilation changes that created wind tunnel effects that accelerated the fire's progress while preventing escape through normal exit routes. Frank Scalise was eliminated in 1961 when his apartment building was partially destroyed by what appeared to be a boiler explosion in the basement, but was actually caused by pressure modifications that had been made during heating system upgrades that created conditions for catastrophic failure. The boiler explosion killed Scalise and 4 family members while destroying evidence of the pressure modifications that had been installed over a period of 6 months through routine maintenance visits by heating contractors working for Lucky's organization. Albert Anastasia's brother, Anthony Anastasia, was eliminated in 1962 when his house in Staten Island was destroyed by a structural collapse that appeared to be caused by foundation problems related to nearby highway construction, but was actually triggered by excavation work that had been conducted by Lucky's crews under the guise of utility installation projects. The house collapse occurred while Anthony was hosting a family gathering, killing him and 8 relatives who had gathered for a holiday celebration that had provided the perfect opportunity for eliminating multiple family members simultaneously. Thomas Eboli was eliminated in 1962 when his nightclub in the Bronx was destroyed by what appeared to be an electrical fire caused by aging wiring systems, but was actually triggered by electrical modifications that had been installed during lighting upgrades that created conditions for arcing and combustion. The nightclub fire killed Eboli and 12 customers who were unable to escape due to exit modifications that had been made during recent renovations that appeared to improve customer flow, but actually created bottlenecks that prevented emergency evacuation. By 1962, Lucky Luciano had used real estate manipulation to eliminate 23 major crime figures, while acquiring valuable Manhattan and Brooklyn properties that generated legitimate rental income and appreciated significantly in value due to the city's continued development boom. The real estate operations had generated over $15 million in legitimate property value, while eliminating virtually all significant threats to Lucky's organization and establishing his control over New York organized crime through systematic elimination of rival leadership. More importantly, the real estate strategy had provided perfect legal cover for Lucky's activities, because property ownership, construction work, and building maintenance were completely legitimate business activities that were protected by commercial law and regulatory frameworks. Federal law enforcement agencies investigated the series of building collapses and construction accidents, but found no evidence of criminal conspiracy or deliberate sabotage, concluding that the incidents were unfortunate but inevitable consequences of rapid urban development and aging building infrastructure. The FBI's investigation was hampered by the complexity of the construction industry and the number of legitimate contractors, suppliers, and regulatory agencies involved in each incident, making it impossible to identify patterns or connections that would suggest deliberate criminal activity. New York City building inspectors reviewed construction standards and safety procedures, but concluded that existing regulations were adequate and that the recent incidents were within the normal range of construction-related accidents expected in a major urban development environment. The insurance industry investigated the pattern of building failures, but found no evidence of fraud or deliberate damage, noting that urban construction projects inherently involved risks that occasionally resulted in property damage and casualties, despite appropriate safety precautions. Lucky's real estate assassination strategy had achieved complete success while maintaining perfect legal protection and generating substantial legitimate profits that could be reinvested in additional property acquisitions and criminal operations. The psychological impact of the real estate operations on surviving crime figures was devastating, because it demonstrated that Lucky could eliminate enemies through methods that were completely undetectable and impossible to defend against through traditional security measures. The fear generated by the building collapses and construction accidents was particularly effective because it was based on the understanding that Lucky could eliminate targets in their own homes, businesses, and social gathering places without any warning or opportunity for escape. More importantly, the real estate operations demonstrated that Lucky possessed resources and capabilities that allowed him to manipulate the entire urban environment to serve his criminal purposes while maintaining complete legitimacy and legal protection. Frank Costello, one of the few major crime figures to survive Lucky's real estate campaign, later said, "Lucky didn't just control organized crime. He controlled the city itself. He could make the ground disappear from under your feet and call it urban development." Meyer Lansky's assessment of the real estate operations was more practical. Lucky proved that the most effective weapons are often the ones that look like acts of God. When a building falls down, people blame the building, not the man who bought it. The precedent established by Lucky's real estate assassination operations influenced organized crime strategy for decades, demonstrating that legitimate business activities could be more effective than violence for eliminating enemies, while generating profits and maintaining legal protection. The real estate operations also established Lucky as the most sophisticated criminal strategist in history, someone who could weaponize the basic infrastructure of urban society to serve his criminal purposes, while appearing to be a legitimate businessman contributing to economic development and urban improvement. From his exile in Italy, Lucky Luciano had demonstrated that true criminal power came not from avoiding legitimate institutions, but from controlling them so completely that they became weapons against his enemies, while serving his financial and strategic interests. The real estate empire that Lucky built through systematic elimination operations continued generating profits and providing operational cover for organized crime activities long after his death in 1962, establishing a permanent foundation for criminal influence over New York's development and construction industries. Lucky's real estate legacy proved that the ultimate criminal victory was achieved not through violence or intimidation, but through the systematic acquisition of legitimate power that could be used to eliminate enemies through methods that appeared to be natural disasters, while actually serving carefully planned strategic objectives. On the 7th of November, 1959, Tony Anastasia died in what appeared to be a tragic building collapse, caused by structural failure and urban development pressures. In reality, he became the victim of the most sophisticated assassination method ever devised, elimination through real estate manipulation that turned the very foundation of his home into the instrument of his destruction.